Hello and welcome to today's show. I'm Fonz and it's great to have you along. And today my guest is Leigh Chambers, and we're going to talk a bit about community radio and about the programming she does on community radio. So I'm going to bring her up now. Hello, Leigh.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Okay, yeah, we're going to chat about community radio because you're involved with a station in Cambridge, and you do shows on there. Can I start with asking you, how did you get involved in community radio? What was your involvement in it to start with? What made you want to get involved with it?
Well, my background's in journalism, so I trained as a journalist many years ago. So when I was doing that, I did a bit of radio, and I'd done a little bit at university for the university radio show. And then I did a creative writing MA about 10 years ago. And it was after that I remember looking at the website thinking, I'd like to get involved in radio again. And I looked at Cambridge 105's website and saw that they had loads of wonderful shows about film, about food and theatre, but nothing about books. So I contacted Tim Willett, who I now know to be the station manager, and said, you haven't got any programs about books? And he said, yeah, we'll come in and have a chat about it. And I did. And at the end of that chat, he said, we've got a gap for a show in 4 weeks' time. Are you interested? So suddenly,
so right time, right place.
Yeah, really. Just from a vague idea to suddenly, oh, right, thinking out, we've got to put a show together. So that was about 4 years ago, I think. And
so even did 4 years.
Yeah, they were a bit random, and it's formed and evolved over time.
Yeah, that's like in everything. You start with an idea and expands and moves to different ways. But that makes it fun, though, doesn't it? Really.
It does. And I did the book show for maybe about a year and a half, 2 years, and I thought actually I'd like to get more involved with the station. I like the ethos of the station. I like broadcasting. I like radio and the people involved. And so I again approached someone in a senior position, said, are there any gaps? Is there anything else I could do? And it happened to be at a time when another presenter, Linda Ness, was moving. And so her 2 shows became available. So after a couple of tryouts, sitting in for people, I took over Linda's show on a Monday and Friday from 10 till 1 each day.
And you're still doing that show, yeah?
So that must be about three and a half, maybe 3 years or so.
Okay, your book show, so you must be very interested in books.
Well, yeah, I've got the background in creative writing, and I studied English at university. I've always been interested in books and writing. Trying to write a novel myself. So I've always been interested in the process of writing. What we do on the show is we talk a lot about that, about how the writer writes the book. So rather than just, this is a book.
So like tips, really? Do you get tips from actual...
Yeah, how did you do it? Did you plot? What's this character about? Why did they die halfway through? Or so it's about the craft, really, rather than just saying this book is out. So people interested in finding out more about how the book is put together. That's writers as well as readers. Hopefully, we'll get that from the interviews that we do.
Yeah, and that's good. Makes it more in depth. Looking at, like you're saying, put the process together as well. Do you find that something that's probably missed off other book shows? So it's an important part that you're giving that other shows aren't.
Well, we give writers quite a long time, I think. So we have a writer in the studio for an hour, but in between they're choosing 3 pieces of music, and there are 2 other 10-minute interviews with authors. So the studio guest gets 20-25 minutes to talk about their writing. So that's quite a long time. They read an extract of their work often, and then 2 10-minute interviews as well, which again 10 minutes is quite a lot of time in radio. And I think we do, because we're delving down into the hows and whys of doing it. I hope that at the end of it a listener will have not just an idea of what the book is about, but about the process of writing it, and about the author's approach to that, and the author's thoughts on really why they wrote the book. And as well as that, we try and keep local. So it's easy in Cambridge because there are so many writers.
there's so many authors and so many wonderful stories. I can imagine you've had people like Alison Bruce on your show.
Yeah, Alice,
Brilliant lady, yeah. And called
lots of crime writers in Cambridge. It seems to be a real hub for crime writing.
There's a lot of crime. Talking with my historian hat on, there's a lot of crimes happened in Cambridge. So, and I know that
I think Cambridge is a particularly crime-ridden place, but I think what it does offer is because of its history and its setting, the location. You can go earthy if you want and explore the underbelly of Cambridge, or you can set it like something like Grantchester. You can set it in.
Yeah, no, definitely. Is your show live? Your book show?
Not the book show. No, it's because we work around the availability of authors, and because authors also don't want to broadcast live, and because we're tight on time. It's just easy to.
I suppose something like that probably is not made to be live. Really, I suppose it's a lot of, like you're saying, fitting everything in and putting it the right way round and stuff, and making sure the right points get across. And of course, like you're saying, authors, their time when they're available to do it, I suppose it would be very hard the show to have it live.
So we record as live, so I tend not to go back in and edit it, but working around the availability. And I think, we have a good set of listeners, but a lot of our listeners don't listen live. It's a podcast, so it doesn't have to be live.
Yeah, well, that's what a lot of the world, everything's on demand now, isn't it? Do you find that that's the way a lot of things are going as well, really? That you do get your live listeners. I've got live viewers. We've got live viewers now, but you find a lot more come after the show.
Yeah, and people will find as if they're looking for a specific author. So if they're Googling Alison, for example, or if they're Googling Jill Dawson or somebody like that, because they've read a book by them and they're interested in finding out more, then our podcast comes up, and that means that they can, I can hear them talking about depth. It's not always, we're very lucky in Cambridge. We have a wonderful literary festival, and we have authors coming to brilliant bookshops like Heifer's, but not everybody's as lucky as that. It's not always possible.
Do you get to visit the book signings and that and chat to some bigger authors? Yeah,
but I've gone to the book signings and sometimes some shared events there, and of course, as well as Heifer's in Cambridge, there's Toppings in Ely, so I've popped along to there to interview authors. It's you can do it so easily now on your phone. When I first started, when I was training, when I was involved with the university radio show in the mid-'80s, we had these massive, great tape recorders, these Euros.
Yeah, I remember them, yeah.
Which, they broke your neck.
I remember old cartridges for jingles and stuff.
Yeah, they were reel-to-reel things, and you had to literally edit them using a razor blade, and if you sliced it wrong, you were stuck. Whereas now, I can do it all on my phone. With
and you can download if you want to edit it as well, edit little bits out or tidy it up. You can edit software, and it's nothing, and it just takes minutes, doesn't it now?
It does. And I'll be honest, when I started doing this, I had no idea technically. I mean, I'm still not that advanced, but technically I had no idea at all. And I always say to people who are interested in getting involved in radio, if I can do it, if I can do the technical side, then you can, because really I was a bit of a dunce on it. But as you say, it's easy to download. It's relatively easy to edit. Actually, I spent this morning editing a few things. It's quite fun. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, from my own experiences, but I prefer the live stuff. I don't know if you've done live radio. I can imagine you've got that buzz afterwards, and it's mad rush, and it's one of the best feelings I think doing live broadcasting.
Well, I get the best of both worlds, you see, because I have Bookmark, which is recorded, and then I do 2 mid-morning shows on the station from 10 till 1. On Monday and Friday, just in case anybody wants to tune in, and they are.
No, we'll promote all that a bit later on in the show, so stay tuned to find out all the details properly of all your shows.
They're live, and that's great because you can respond to events, world events as they're happening.
Yeah, definitely. If anybody also wants to comment, please do comment. Danny's made a few comments. I've put them up on the screen as we've been chatting. But do join in, and you can do that by going to the main Chat with Fonz page. That tuning in. What was it like you said, you took a break from radio and then you came back and it all changed, all this new technology? What was it like making your first show?
It was a good question. It was scary. It was really scary. Suddenly you realize you're talking to people, that people will be listening, and that and everything was new. because when I'd done it before, when I'd done it in Liverpool, I hadn't done any of the technical stuff really, apart from the ewers and maybe the splicing. Everything else had then been loaded up and ready for broadcast. It was a pre-record. So suddenly, actually being the person who had to do that, actually being the person more or less in charge of it, was really scary. It was easier with Bookmark because it's pre-recorded, but the mid-morning shows, the first time I did it, I remember I was absolutely petrified because I had this massive deck in front of me with all these dials and switches, and somebody had taught me through them, but it had gone in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, well, sometimes there's too much. You think you've got that information, and when you're doing, I remember my very first live broadcast, I got told this stuff, I knew it inside out, I remembered it, sat there, I know all this, then suddenly you going live, and suddenly your mind goes blank, don't it? I don't know if you experience.
And you press the wrong button and something else.
Yeah.
So the first time there were about 5 people helping me. One was just making me cups of tea. One was doing the traffic and travel. One was going to stood over my shoulder, just checking that I was pressing the right buttons. There were various people floating about. Then the second time I came in, there were 2 people there to help me. One was doing the traffic and travel, and one was checking I was pressing the right buttons. And then the third time I came into the studio, there was no one.
Wow,
and that, suddenly it was, oh my goodness. And in a way, I made lots of mistakes, but you only learn as long as you can get out of your mistakes.
So sometimes I find you make this. I find when I'm doing live stuff, if you mess up, you just make it a part of the show. Hey, this is live. This is what happens when it's live.
And if you're listening to national radio, that happens all the time.
Yeah, but it happens on big TV broadcasts as well. So it's human nature. We can't help it. And I think it shows that actually you are live and you are bringing this to people at that moment.
Yeah, so in a way, you're the one pressing the buttons. You're not just sitting in a little glass while somebody else does the hard work. You are completely in control or trying to.
Looking at the pre-recorded stuff and the live stuff, how's the differences to you? How do you find the differences? What makes pre-recorded it and then the live stuff?
As you say, there's more of a buzz definitely with live. I suppose with pre-recorded, because it's very much about time. So I need to get 3 songs in and 2 interviews in and get a decent chat with the author.
Yeah.
I plan it very carefully in terms of the questions. And I mean, obviously, I don't always follow the plan because the answers might take you in a different direction. But I have a vague idea of what I call the direction of travel.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever set on plan because, like you said, sometimes it may lead to something else that you want to explore that you didn't know you were going to explore. So I think you have to keep an open sort of platform, don't you?
I have a vague idea, I think, of where you're going, and at 35 minutes I have to have done this, and at 45 minutes I have to be doing this. Whereas with live radio, there are certain things that I need to be doing at certain times, and we have a traffic and travel bulletin at 20 past and 22 the hour, so I need to get those in, and various other bits and pieces. But it's more fluid. Certainly if a live news story comes up, if there's breaking news, and particularly if it's relevant to Cambridge, then obviously you go with the flow.
Yeah. Have you actually, while you've been broadcasting live, actually had a major event happen while you've been broadcasting live?
Well, a couple of times, because I broadcast on a Friday, I've been on air after a general election. So the results and the fallout from that have been coming through. So I think not the last general nations, the day after Right, Left and Centre, Benno Band resigned, Nick Clegg resigned, various people resigned, and a lot of those came through while I was on air. We do a thing called Election Studio the following day, and I was doing that with our news editor, Julian Clover, and that was really exciting because watching soldiers fall, really, watching dominoes, who was going to be the next, then it was rumoured it was Nigel Farage, and then it wasn't, then it was, and so that's quite exciting. But a couple of times I've been on air and there's been royal news, and I'm not a royalist in particular, but it's still quite exciting. I think I was on air when...
I suppose it's something to look back up in years to come that you were part of a live broadcast while these events were happening.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to be the one to tell people, hey, you know, Harry and Meghan are getting married, or, you know, the Duchess of Cambridge has had a little girl, or they're not earth-shattering events that won't really change anybody's life, but, you know, people's ears might prick up a little bit.
Yeah. Looking at this one, going back to community radio to like national radio, how do you see, like, how did you describe the both? Because people who don't really understand out there watching what community radio is to national radio, how would you describe the differences for them?
Well, I think there's the practical differences and there's listener difference. There's difference for the listeners, if you like. The practical differences are that on community radio, hardly anyone is paid. We're all volunteers. And our studios are put together by volunteers, and usually with equipment that's been donated, although often that's not the case, but sometimes it can be. So they're smaller in terms of studios. Possibly the output is a little bit more limited because you're relying on volunteers. So you are more, you're not, well, you're caught, aren't you, if a volunteer can't come in and nobody else can come in at short notice. You know, it can lead to gaps in the broadcasting or just continuous streams of music. So that's one thing. In terms of the difference to a listener, sometimes, you know what, I think, I mean, I'm bigging up Cambridge 105 radio, but I think if somebody tuned into that radio station, they wouldn't necessarily know that we were volunteers. They wouldn't maybe hear that much of a difference between our presenters and other presenters. I mean, I can't speak for all community radio stations, but they can get to a very high level. Certainly. And, you know,
but do you feel though there should be a difference between national and community?
It's that hard thing, isn't it? I mean, a community radio station should be about people learning the craft and learning the skill and making those mistakes and maybe bumbling around a bit. But equally, you want to entertain people, and nobody wants to listen to a show that is full of ums and ahs and people not really know what they're doing and crashing vocals on songs and you know, stopping and starting records willy-nilly. So it's trying to get that balance. Yeah.
Do you think, I suppose a platform of trying to describe it so people understand out who's watching, I suppose you have people who do smaller parts who haven't got the experience. Like you're saying, you probably get somebody who'd read the news as one of their, am I right in saying this, to give them a little small bit and they can progress, or they can work behind the scenes helping somebody make a show? Would you say that's the best way to describe it? And they take steps up?
Yeah, we've got a show on Cambridge 105 radio that's called 105 Today, which is broadcast every day between 9 and 10. And it includes 2 extracts of interviews that have probably been broadcast the previous day. So it's a chance for listeners to hear them for the first time or listen to them again. And there's music and there's traffic and travel. And people who come to the station who are interested in getting involved, usually we put them on that show because it's a live broadcast, but there is a structure to it, very much a structure to it. But they get to do a bit of chatting.
Yeah, so like take their first steps into it. Yeah.
People who've done that show who now have regular shows on the station, you know, they cut their teeth on that program. They learn what to do when things go wrong, what it felt like to be live on air, and then they can move to a longer slot.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Given them, like you said, even though it's still community, you want that kind of fluidness. That if it's like complete errors everywhere and all over the place, then people are going to tune away from the station. Not because, do you feel that? But not because they're bad or anything. It's just because people probably don't always understand what the word community radio is. They think radio. Do you think that's something that happens a lot?
Well, you want to see people improve and evolve, don't you? And so that should be what the station shows as well. I mean, I think to early episodes of Bookmarked, you know, they are a bit all over the place. Whereas if I listen to them now, you know, they're much more polished, and that's because I learned how to navigate equipment. I learned how to use the time. I learned how to do interviews. So I personally have evolved over that time, and that's what we want to see in the volunteers, you know. And we do have regular checks and measures, which sounds a bit more frightening than it is, but is in place to check in on people, see how they're doing.
Do you like have little workshops for people?
Occasionally we do some training. Yeah, so we did some training recently about interview technique, helping people interview. We regularly do stuff on traffic and travel, because that's in almost every live show there is, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. We've had training on news. When people start, Julian, our news editor, will usually sit down and talk to them about how he puts a news broadcast together.
So if people wanted to get involved who are listening, not necessarily 105, because you can only have so many people on the station, but radio station, this is something that community radio does cover, really. Some workshops, even if I suppose you can just, even if you just wanted, would it be thinking if you just wanted to do a workshop and actually be on radio, is that option available as well?
I don't know, it might be available at some stations. I mean, obviously, if you're investing in training people, you want to see that.
Yeah.
Anybody interested, I would suggest, first of all, really listen to the station that you're interested in approaching and think what you can offer them. We get lots of people saying, I can do a music show. I've got really good taste in music. Actually, we've got lots of shows on the station that are music related. If somebody came to us and said, I could do a music show and it's this genre, and we didn't have that genre show, then we would be interested in following it up. You just
got space. I suppose space as well fill quite quickly. I know there's a lot of hours in the day and through the week and through the years and all that, but you can only put so much into that slot. So do you find it hard? Sometimes you have to put people on hold or tell them, no, we can't. And I suppose that's a hard thing to do as well, because you want to give the community this opportunity.
Sometimes it goes through a fast and a famine stage, really. Sometimes we have lots of people buzzing about and we're trying to fit everybody in. And then other times, for whatever reason, some presenters leave, they get a job. You get this voluntary station, people move on. And suddenly you've got holes in your scheduling and you need to fill them. So you need a recruitment drive. But you're always looking for somebody who can stay calm under pressure. We get lots of approaches from people who think they're funny, them and their mates are funny and they want to go on the radio. And I'm not saying them and their mates aren't funny, but you need to give us a little bit more than that. You need to have something, that extra something. It's a community station, but we're still looking to provide balance.
Sorry, my dog's barking. Carrying on. Wait a minute, what was I thinking? My dog's put me off. Liveness. What programming, because it's community radio, what events and information do you cover in the community? Do you have specialist programs on 105?
We have loads of specialist programs.
Dave King said, can I get Cambridge 105 on my Alexa?
I would think so, Dave. Yeah.
I think you can,
the internet. We stream live via our website or via Radio Player. So maybe go to Radio Player or go to our website, which is
looking at programs. Go back to that. Looking at program. What's for the community? What kind of programs do you have for the community? So where the community.
We try and pick everything, and we try on the program committee to look at areas where we have gaps and try and fill that gap. But what we've got at the moment, let me just run through it off the top of my head. We have books, programs on books, on films, Flavour, which covers restaurants and eateries.
I remember years ago when it was the old community station 209. I went on Flavour show, and it was when Walkers were doing their crisps thing, different flavours, and I had to test all the crisps and actually describe over air what the crisps tasted like to people.
That's a nice job.
But that show's been going for a very long time.
Very long time, and as you say, it was in the station's previous incarnation. It's 209. We've got programs on classical music, on club music, on folk music, country music. We've got one that looks at anime. We have jazz. So as well as things that we always try and, obviously in the day, look at all the stuff that's happening in Cambridge. So each of the daytime shows will, apart from the breakfast show, will usually have an interview with somebody who's doing something locally. So we have at least 3 or 4 interviews a day with events. We have live news bulletins at various points during the day, and we always try and lead where we can with a local story that's specifically Cambridge, because there are other local radio stations, but if we think specifically, say, about BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, their remit is huge. They have to cover Peterborough and Cambridge.
Yeah, but they've expanded, really, haven't they? From it's all platform change and save money in these big corporate. They're all doing it, and I suppose over time it will be something like East of England radio, so it won't be so Cambridge. So there is a necessary and important part of stations like Cambridge 105 to keep
I would say, BBC Radio Cambridge isn't that Cambridge at the moment. It can't be when it has to cover such a large area. Peterborough and Cambridge are very, very different. Whereas we, our remit is specifically for Cambridge, so we can really delve into the city, and we are very lucky that Cambridge is there's so much going on.
Yeah, and live events, I know that as well. Most events live events I've been to in Cambridge, that Cambridge 105's been there, and that, I feel, to me, that's important, because from the historian angle, that's an event that's happening in Cambridge, it's taking place, and you're sharing that event with people. And some people don't know. It's strange. A lot of people don't realise what actually goes on in the city, and there's a lot of people who can't be a part of it neither, for whatever reasons, and you're making them a part of it where they probably wouldn't have been able to, because, like you're saying, stations aren't so local these days.
We try and do that. We have an outside broadcast vehicle, Flossie, we call her, so we can go to events like the Big Weekend. We were there, the Folk Festival, various charity events. We can take the outside broadcast vehicle and do a proper outside broadcast, and we're very lucky in that respect. And that means that, and we were there at Strawberry Fair as well. So that
and I saw you events. So it's brilliant. I love that, because it's given. I find people. You're also, when you put it on your website and Facebook, it's once it's there forever, and it's recording history, and where other stations are not able to with a much bigger platform. So you're keeping Cambridge, what's happening in Cambridge, alive.
And we like to really champion Cambridge. And one of the things I haven't mentioned, which I should, is we champion local music and local bands. So often when we're at the Big Weekend or Strawberry Fair, we have a stage, and we have local bands performing on that stage. And the New Music Generator, which is a program that we broadcast every Wednesday night.
I was going to say about that. It's basically it's a show, a chart show, isn't it? I suppose a bit like Top of the Pops with big national songs, but local songs. People, you get the community, which I think is a brilliant idea. It's one of the best ideas music-wise, local music-wise, because there is such great talent out there in Cambridge. You go to a pub, a gig, or whatever, and there's some brilliant talent, and not only are you sharing that with the community, but you're also giving the community the opportunity, like you would in charts, to vote for their favourite bands.
Yeah, we have the unsigned charts. So all these acts are not signed by labels. Some don't want to be signed, but some are trying to be signed. So there are solo singers and bands, all different genres of music. And there's a top 5, and that move up and down within the top 5, or new entries coming out depending on a public vote. But the New Music Generator does look at that chart, but it also interviews local bands, and certainly as a result of that program, lots of local bands and performers and artists have worked with one another and worked together, and we were able for the last 3-4 years to have a really quite grand awards evening, the NMG Awards, which was at what's
MMG stand for?
New Music Generator.
Right. Sorry. I just.
And for best female singer, for best band, that it's fantastic how something like that has really grown in the last couple of years. And is that
like an event where people can attend this award ceremony?
Yeah, it was proper like tables and stuff. Yeah. It was quite glam. But the important thing is that it really, for artists starting out in their career, or even for those who've been in the game for 10, 20 years. It's that kind of recognition and support and acknowledgement.
Do you, I suppose, I don't know, if like a bit like a Hall of Fame sort of thing, somebody who's been going for a long time, do you have that as well, recognised for their years in music?
If a track stays on the unsigned chart for 20 weeks or more, then, well, at 20 weeks they come off and they get an award at the award ceremony for the longevity for having been there for 20 years.
It's certainly filling the gap. It's something that when I heard about it, I thought this is a brilliant idea, because there is such great talent out there as well, music wise. And of course, look at one of the most famous groups that spanned from Cambridge, Pink Floyd. Do you know what I mean? There might be another band who's, you know, I mean, just as talented, but it's been in the right place at the right time, really, isn't it, to hit the big time? I don't think there's not any band who can say they were brilliant enough to be famous. It's just being there at the right time. And
you know, you get some young kids, really, without wishing to sound patronising, but, you know, 14 or 15 just starting out, and it's just absolutely brilliant. And for them to get
I think it was at Strawberry Fair, at your stand and all that you did. There was some young lads doing some stuff, and I thought they were brilliant. Do you know what I mean? And without doing that, they wouldn't have been given that chance. So it really is opening the doors for people. And that's certainly what makes the word community stand out in community radio. So
and we work with charities as well. So we have a charity of the month, and we try and focus on a charity either based in Cambridge or one that does work specific to Cambridge. And, you know, we will have interviews with them throughout the month, profiling their work. They're on our website. So again, that's about being in the community and just maybe spending time and looking at things that other stations can't or won't do, and really pushing those things to the fore. Looking at the future, like towards that, I don't know, with your show or the station in general, I know you can't specifically speak for the station. Do you feel with social media and online that this could become an important part of radio broadcasting? I mean, it's the big question as to where you go with this, what happens to it, because people of my generation and your generation, I think we might be slightly different generations, but I listened to radio, and I would quite happily listen.
I did,
you know, and still do. And I will, if a track comes on, if somebody plays a track on the radio and it comes on, then I'll listen because I like the presenter or because I feel a loyalty to the station. I'll carry on listening. I've got two children, 16 and 13. They very, very rarely listen to the radio. And if they do and a track comes on they don't like, they flip straight away, because it's this kind of instant culture that they want. They don't really have loyalty to any radio station or presenter. So,
but the thing is, modern generation, sadly, it's all on demand. Like my kids listen to iTunes. They don't listen to a radio station. They just make a playlist up and play the songs they want. And that's kind of sad, because like with radio, you get interaction with people. Like you can view, listeners can phone up and say, hey, I like that, or they can say, oh, you're commenting about the traffic, just this has happened, thanks such and such, and they feel a part of the show. And I don't think they quite get that, because everything's it's just handed to them, like, we don't need to listen to that, you don't need to be a part of that, you can just listen to it straight away. Do you think that's something where radio's losing out because of it?
Possibly, yes. In certain, you know, stations have found their listening figures are down, certain ones have found they're up. I think for young people, certainly, you know, it's a lot about YouTube and podcasts these days, and the YouTube stars are the ones they listen to. You know, in my day, it was the disc jockeys, it was the Mike Reed and Noel Edmonds. You know, they were the super in my house, Terry Wogan, of course. Whereas now, you know, my daughter mentions YouTube people I've not heard of.
Same.
Those are stars for her. So I think we do need to shift, and you sometimes get a radio station that broadcasts live as well, so you can see the person playing the tracks. I mean, I'm not quite sure about that at all. It's something that we're trying to address, because we recognize that people are listening on different platforms. We need that.
I find as well, with my own personal view, that with social media, you could be and that event, and actually not only have live music from the event, you can actually broadcast live through your social media platforms as well. Does that encourage people to probably be more involved? Do you feel that brings people to the station?
I think sometimes, yes. I mean, certainly, you know, some of our shows, the 60s show, we do a show of 60s music on a Sunday.
That's John Gannon, yeah.
John, and
a great guy. I know John for years.
Lovely man.
He's brilliant, yeah.
Tony Della, who does this Northern Soul
Tony,
show.
I know as well, yeah. Great guy again.
On a Tuesday night. And both of those shows get massive reaction, not just from Cambridge, but from all over. I mean, there are other shows that do the same, but I think those two are probably the most notable, where people are listening online or via SoundCloud or whatever. That's fantastic, that a local station. And I've been on air, and I've had texts and messages from people listening in Germany, Guam, Australia. I mean, it blows your mind, really, to think.
Yeah, it does. Well, I find with local history that you get people who share their history from Cambridge, but you get a wider audience. Actually, the biggest part, 8% of my audience, is from other countries, because what it is, Cambridge is a very fascinating city to people. So I suppose, actually, although you're local and you're broadcasting on FM, DAB local, but because of the internet, you're actually getting a much wider broadcast rate with people in other countries. So do you find you actually, like you were saying, I can imagine you do get a lot of comments from people outside the UK because they're interested to find out about Cambridge, because it's always been one of those cities of interest.
Well, it's one of the most famous cities in the world, isn't it? Because of the university. Lots of people have links and ties to it. So I think people have high expectations of it. But yeah, we do. I mean, Hans Jürgen, who's a regular listener, might even be watching now. Hello, Hans, if you are. His daughter is at university in Cambridge. So he started listening to the show as a way of sort of trying to keep up with her life, you know, and kind of keep plugged in. And other people have links to the city that they study there, or they've had relatives, or they're just intrigued.
Yeah. Paul Jones just put a message. Great show, Fonz. Lovely guest as well.
Bless you, Paul.
But no, I find with the outside thing, it's wonderful to know that actually people outside Cambridge are passionate about Cambridge as well. And it must be, I don't know, it must be like overwhelming to think actually you're broadcasting, you go in there thinking you're broadcasting to Cambridge, but actually no, you're broadcasting to the world. I don't know if you feel that when you think about that. It can be like overwhelming sometimes, like who is actually listening to me.
Well, I do say to people when they come and train with us, you know, who is your listener? Have a listener in mind, and that might be my listener is me. I mean, I know that sounds strange.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. When I first started doing radio,
what would I be interested? It was either me, or when my mum was around, I would think of my mum, because quite different people. So I needed to kind of keep me interested, somebody who listened who's like me, or somebody who was in their 80s, lived in Yorkshire and had never really been outside of her hometown, interested as well. But you need to have, I think, in your head, someone that you're talking to. It's quite alarming sometimes when people say, you know, I heard you on the radio this morning, because there's another sense in which you think nobody's listening because you're sitting in a studio and you can't see anyone.
I find I take the approach that I'm my own biggest fan, sort of thing, in the respect that I hate listening to my own voice. I hate it. So what I do is, because you always want to hear back to see how it sounds, so I have to take the approach that it's somebody else and I'm judging somebody else, because if I start, oh God, this is dreadful, that's awful, because you always do, it's your instant reaction. So I take the approach that I'm listening to my favourite DJ, and otherwise I just cringe. I don't know. Do you find that? You
need to learn to love your own voice, which is really, really hard, because when you hear it coming back at you, either through the headphones or listening to a recording, you think, oh, I didn't think I sounded like that. Do I really sound like that? You know, but you need to just, well, if not love it, learn to sort of live with it, really.
Well, I have over the years, but when I first started, I thought, God, because my very first show was recorded of. I spent 18 hours editing it, redoing bits, and I think it ended up exactly the same all the way through from the first take of it. So
you're always your own worst critic, though, because
yeah.
of the relationship that you have with your own voice and this, the strange sort of distance that you have from it. But also because most of us are just our own harsh judges, and that is the thing with live radio. I think that I'm much more aware of silences than I would be in a pre-recorded show, and sometimes you have to be careful not to gabble to fill a silence. Silence is okay to a limit as long as it's a small one. Whereas in a show about books, if I ask somebody a question and there's a silence, I don't fill that silence because I think they're thinking about it. And if they're thinking about it, then that means they haven't been asked that question before. So I'm not going to give them an out. I'm going to let them think and then answer it. Whereas in a live show, that might be a little bit more tricky. You're aware that it just needs to be in the daytime, certainly a little bit more upbeat, and you have to be careful with subjects.
Looking at your shows, how do you see the future of yourself involved? Like we were saying before about how technology is changing. You looked a little bit about that, but how do you see yourself as a presenter and your shows?
Well, I hope technology doesn't change too much because I struggle a little bit with it as it is. On the dashboard, there are various things I know. There are various buttons Leigh can touch and various buttons Leigh can't. In my own right, I don't know. I won't
worry about too much. Worry about pressing buttons. I've killed so many stations live off the air in the past. So
I have taken the station off air, I think 3 times. Obviously inadvertently each time. But I don't know. In terms of my own role, I don't know. I can see the book program carrying on indefinitely. I've got a list as long as my arm of guests who I want to contact and people waiting to come on. And the mid-morning show, I'm still enjoying doing. I don't really want to move from that slot. Because it's quite a nice slot. It fits because it's all voluntary. It has to fit in around the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I can do 2-3 hour slots a week without it impinging too much on my paid work and my family life and my hobbies, etc. So, I'd be interested to see how the station evolves. I know that people are on it. People are looking at it and taking us forward and trying to think where forward might lead.
Thinking outside the box, like we were looking at talking about how technology is moving. Do you feel that like you get vinyl and it's like this retro thing, old computer games? Do you feel there might become just your opinion really? Do you think there might become a time where actually old radio, as it's a retro thing sort of thing, I'm talking years to come, that everybody will be listening to radio again?
Oh, it's interesting, isn't it? Because cassettes are coming back as well, aren't they? I heard the other day 80% increase in sales of cassettes.
Do you think about in 10, 15, 20 years YouTube won't be the thing and all that? Actually tuning into an old FM radio will be?
I don't know, because you look.
It'd be kind of cool if it was.
It would be kind of cool, but our generation are basically going to be dying out, aren't they? And my daughter's generation, and she's not grown up listening to radio. I've tried to get her, but it's all iCloud and YouTube, and
it is sadly the future with younger people, with what's happening with that kind of thing. And I think it's just music's on demand now, which makes that kind of area not such a big thing. But I feel that because of that, a lot of information's missing as well. And I don't think I think we do need that platform. I think it will always exist because people will always want to know information about where they live.
Yes, I think you're right. In terms of providing instant information about a local region, radio is excellent for that. I mean, if something happened in Cambridge now, Cambridge 105 radio could be first on the scene because more quicker than any TV stations and probably any radio, because their resources would be split. So we can cover that instantaneous coverage. Whether people, as they grow older, will be more interested in that. I don't know. What I see in a young generation is a sort of impatience. That sounds a judgmental word, but it's not meant to be.
But it's all fast paced, moving. Before you brought one phone, the next one's out, and it's not the people themselves. It's what's been made by companies and those in the bigger place have made it fast paced.
And you know, my daughters would think, well, why should I listen to this song on the radio? I don't like this song. You know, I would think, well, you don't like this song, but you might like the one after.
Yeah,
that's how I grew up.
Well, growing up with radio stations yourself, what stations do you remember listening to and programs? And I know you touched on it.
Yeah, Radio 1 is what I grew up with. Mike Reed, Noel Edmonds, Radio 1 Roadshow. I remember going to see the Radio 1 Roadshow in Cleethorpes.
Yeah, I remember seeing a few of them, yeah.
And that was massive. You know, there were thousands of people.
Yeah.
And then you queued for 2 hours to Mike Reed to sign a poster of himself, bits and pieces, Dave Lee Travis, all of that. That was what I grew up with. Peter Powell, you know, those names are so resonant.
Yeah. But there's a certain generation, isn't there? Like when you look at radio DJs, like you're saying, Mike Reed, Noel Edmonds, I'm trying to think, Kid Jedson, endless, isn't it? Fluff Freeman.
Alan Freeman, Gary Davis came right at the very end of really when I was listening to radio.
Kenny Everett was another one. Kenny Everett, actually, I think he was one of the first people who actually didn't actually go to the studio, as far as I believe, that actually did his show from home.
Right.
So
Adrian Just, who did a similar sort of program, that sort of zany humour.
But that's something that's coming quite big as well in radio, not so much community radio, because anybody basically can start an online radio station up these days. There's a lot of people who actually do shows from their own home, don't they, as well?
That's right, yeah, and or just produce podcasts, you know, and that I suppose is the thing, that if you are just interested in producing a program about books, I could just produce that at home and send it out into the wild world. I don't want to do that. I want to be part of a team and part of a community. I listen to a lot of podcasts, you know, when I'm cooking. I've got loads of podcasts on my phone, lots of American ones actually.
I've always been a fan. I've always been a fan of radio drama, because like where my children don't understand, you got a program and you're being told what you want to see. This is how my best way I describe it. You're being told, okay, this is what it looks like. That's what it looks like. And it's the same with a book. That's why I love books as well. With radio drama, you're getting the sound, but you can visualize. I like just sitting there, you know, after a busy day doing something, listening to a bit of radio drama, and you've got that your own version. You've got your own personal version of that program. And I think that's something a lot of young people as well don't really understand. They rather just watch.
Yeah. But I mean, I never listened to radio drama when I was younger, whereas now I listen to. So if I find I'm driving between 2 and 3. I mean, I have the Radio 4 drama on, so I have listened to that. You know, I listen to the Archers and the Archers. But I wouldn't have in my teens. I don't know whether that's just a kind of a slowing down of life or whatever. And also that, you know, we're very lucky, again, I think, just in this country, that the radio drama that is produced is a really high standard on the whole. It has good effect. You know, you don't feel somebody clumping on a tray full of gravel, or, you know, it's done in such a way that it's all absorbed, and you can, if you want to, as you say, really immerse yourself in it. And that's great. I've had some really powerful pieces of
Would that be something, I can imagine the hard work and the detail, would that be something that could be involved in on community radio? Or
Yep, we've been looking, and we'd love to, I think, talked a lot about including drama. We don't have drama on our schedule at the moment, and of course, from a practical point of view, the good thing about drama is that it's not time relevant. So if we recorded a drama, we could use it
over and over again. Yeah. Now, that's the good thing about it. It's like you could make a special, could incorporate with your book show, local author, make a little section of their book, and then broadcast it as a special.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, actually. It's almost like I asked you to do that. But the first...
I'm inside your head.
Inside my computer. First bookmark of the new series, which will go out the second Saturday in September. Usually in a bookmark, we ask the writer to read 2 or 3 minute section of their work. But we've, with the help of Matt Bentman, who's involved with the Flavour programme, we've done something a bit different. We've got an actor, recording actor. Because a lot of authors either A, don't like reading their work, or B, aren't very good.
I think that's a brilliant idea. So you like bringing a snippet of their book to life. That's a brilliant idea.
And the works. So, we'll see how that goes. But that will be in the first bookmark of the new series. The author, because I gave him the right of veto, so look, if you don't like this, we don't need to play it. He absolutely loved it. So that was a big thumbs up for us.
Yeah. So I'm interested in listening to that now. When is this start the new series and how people can listen to it?
Start of the new series. Let me look. I'm looking behind you because we've got the list. The 8th of September is the first show, and that will feature Jim Kelly, who's a crime writer based in Ely, and his crime novels are set in the Fens. So we'll hear from Jim. We'll also hear from a lady called Julie Bamford, who's written a book about Heffer's Bookshop.
Yeah, I know Julie. She's a wonderful lady. Yeah, she's got her own little publishing company, and she's wonderful. She's a wonderful lady.
And she's written about Heffer's, which sponsor bookmarks. So it's too good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll bring it up. Got this is put it up so you can you see that all right?
Yeah,
this is
your. That's me. Yes.
That's your page. So it tells if they go to Cambridge105.co.uk, they can find out by going on the shows, and they can find all about your show there. So it's
and all the other shows on the station. Do take a look at our schedule because it is jump packed full of good stuff.
Yeah, so it's all information there. So what time does it come on? I'm just reading there. Is it 11 till 10?
No, it's shifted actually. So it'll be 2 till 3 on the 8th of September.
Oh, right. So that's AM, yeah?
Yeah. No, PM.
Sorry.
3 p.m. and then the show's up as a podcast a couple of days later.
Yeah. And can they listen to past shows as well?
Oh, all the shows are on there, including those very early rough versions that I talked about right from the beginning of time. So, scroll back through it and there'll be an author, I'm sure, a guarantee that somebody will be interested in because we've covered all genres since we've been going: science fiction, children's, romance, crime, etc.
I've got your email. Is this your email, isn't it? Bookmark at cambridge105.co.uk if anybody's interested.
Yep.
In asking more about the show.
Yep. Or if they've got ideas for people who we might interview, or if they're writers themselves and want to be involved. Always good to hear from people.
Brilliant stuff. I actually found a photo. I actually don't know if you remember this. A long time ago.
Yes, I do.
You interviewed me. Can you actually remember what that was for? Because I can't remember.
That was the coffee morning, the Macmillan coffee morning.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And we had through our doors open. Yes, you can see all the Macmillan balloons there. Through our doors open. And I was on air at the time because it's usually on a Friday between 10 and 1 when I'm on air. So I came out of the studio and was doing some interviews.
Yeah, no, I thought I'd dig that out. But that's something you do as well, like Macmillan Coffee Mornings as well. So that's a charity event that you broadcast live as well.
Yeah. They get lots of interesting guests coming along to that. So the mayor came along, the MP came along, as well as, to be honest, people we share the Enterprise Centre with, who we see in passing, but often don't know what they actually do. But it's a way of involving sponsors, people who've advertised with us as well. You go out, there's always somebody interesting to talk to, always.
Brilliant. That near enough rounds, we've just near enough had an hour chat, and it flies by, doesn't it?
Have we been on there for an hour? Wow.
Yeah. But is there anything just before we go that you want to say to people about your show, about yourself, anything?
Well, really, if people are interested in getting involved in community radio, find the one in your area, give it a listen, so that when you approach them, you can be fully informed about. You look like you're interested in the station and not just interested in getting yourself on air. You're interested in working as part of a team. If there's out there want to be involved with Cambridge 105 Radio, it's the same thing really. Have a listen to what we're doing. Have a look at our schedule. If there's a gap, you think there's a gap in the schedule, or you think you'd be interested in being trained up as a presenter of some sort, contact us.
Also, probably another thing to say is probably spread the word about it so people can share their community stuff. So if you're a part of a community event and they're probably not aware of it, or a community project, and you think the project could benefit, or a local singer or band or anything, pass it on to them.
Pass it on to them. And if you're a part of a business or an organisation that you think would like to be involved with community radio, would like to sponsor a show or advertise or support in some way, it's a community station. We rely on donations and membership fees. So money is tight. And
well, that's probably a lot of people don't realise. With community-based stuff, there is no core funding, is there really? It's donations and what's given by companies and grants and things.
Sponsorship and advertising. And we don't want to ram the station full of advertising, so we limit that. But people will sponsor the weather or sponsor the traffic and traffic bulletins. But if you're working for a business and they've got 100 quid or 50 quid to spare, that's a lot of money to us. We can use that. Brilliant
stuff. Okay, no, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks for being part of the show. Hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll take you down now. But thanks for being part of the show, and welcome on any time. Hopefully, people listening will be tuning into your show. And of course, I'll give you your email again in a moment. So if anybody wants to contact you direct as well. But thanks for being part of the show.
Welcome. Thank you, Fonz. Bye.
Okay, now that was brilliant stuff. So go for that email again. So if you want to contact Bookmark, you can at bookmark@cambridge105.co.uk. And of course, if you have a story or an interest you'd like to share, please do email me, and you can appear on the show yourself. Yep, this is your space to share your story, and you can do that by emailing fonz.chamberlain@cambridgehistorian.co.uk. Brilliant stuff. Okay, but that's the end of the show. Do take care, people. Until next time, thank you for watching.